Good afternoon. It is day 17. Welcome to day 17 of the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. We are reading aloud all week long, all month long. Something different every day, different genre, different topic. And we're giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world. Today is science fiction, and we are excited about today's selection as we have been about every day's selection. And today we are reading from Nalo Hopkinson, Midnight Robber. And so here is the cover so that you can see. We're reading Midnight Robber, and it should be noted that Miss Hopkinson has just been awarded the Damon Knight Grand Master Award, a lifetime achievement for science fiction and fantasy writing. So we are very excited. She is Jamaican born. She lives and she is Canadian. And so we are going to read from chapter 4 of Midnight Robber. We'll read part of that today. A deep swooping motion drove Tantan from sleep. She arrived at the painter's restraining. She grabbed at the painter's restraining strap. It was a 4-day morning, and Benta was beginning her descent. Tantan locked behind her at Chichubud in his saddle. The Dwin was still sleeping, his long claw-like toes locked on his restraining strap, where it curved around Benta's body. Tantan was cold, despite the blanket that Chichibud had tucked around her. Her knees hurt where her legs had been folded all night into the pannier. Her bruises were a thought for later. She rummaged in her pocket, found a last strip of the dried tree frog meat that Chichibud had given her. She set to chewing it, working about in her mouth to soften it. The night had been long, oui. It had been too difficult to speak through the rushing wind of their flight, so they passed it in silence. Tantan there in the rushing dark, with the memory of the weight and smell of Antonio's corpse pinning her to she bed. She retreated into sleep a few times, only to be dragged out of it by her painful knees. The day was brighter now, easier to see about her. Tantan sat up tall in the pannier, dashed her hand across her cheeks. Dried tears flaked off at her touch. Benta swooped down. Tantan looked over the side. Hadid, she cursed. They were heading straight for the forest canopy, towards a leafy circle lower than the topmost trees in the bush, but wide, big, so like any village. Is that home? Chichubud shouted above the rushing wind. Then they were dropping down through green, plunging past leaves and branches. Tantan closed her eyes, ducked her head low below the level of the pannier to avoid the whipping foliage. Benta screeched, back wing landed with a jolt. Somewhere in the foliage, Tantan heard a next pack bird scream. Whoa, I told ya! Chichibud shouted in response. Benta's sister, he told Tantan. Benta bird screeched her own greeting, the nonsense nanny song again, bobbing her head and cooing back like any pigeon. She shook her wings. They shrunk down small once more. She began to preen and tuck them in. At first, Tantan couldn't really take in what she was seeing any at all. It was so big she could only understand a piece at a time. First, the half light of the damp, heavy heat, and the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze. Shiny burgundy leaves all around them, some of them the length of her body. Then it came to her that the thing they had landed on, that curved away on either side, was a branch, not ground. One big maple branch, wide as a 2-lane auto route. Big branches everywhere, so big they disappeared into the shadows like trails, smaller ones coming off them like paths and so. This place was a massive tree, so big she couldn't see all of it. Another screech, a multitudinous chirping, warbling, calling out of Chichibuzz and Benton's names. Dwins were doubling out of the foliage, shimmying down branches, swinging in on lianas, flying in on a pack bird back. Come at Granny, up in the air, animals like rat bats flitting from limb to limb and calling out to each other. They started to land, praps, 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 all around. Actually, they were gliders, not flyers so much. They would land on a branch, push off, shoot to the next one. They chattering to each other like picnic. Mama Nanny, what a way they were ugly. Tan Tan would have run screaming if she'd been herself, but Chi Chi Bud was only grinning and Benton cooing a welcome. The first of the Dwin men reached to them. They stared at Tan Tan, babbled away at Chi Chi Bud. He chirped back as fast as he could. Benta screeched and flapped her wings them, and the whole was a cacophony. How could anybody make any sense heard through that racket? There were two kinds of rat-bat things Tan Tan could see now. One kind had limbs like Chi Chi Bud's, with the two hind legs turned backwards. Some were covered in long hairs. Some that looked older had lost their hair. Most of them had flaps of skin stretching between arms and body. Dwayne Pickney could fly. The other kind of rat bat must have been packbird young. Their feathers were disorderly, rampled up like slept-on hair. But what kind of packbirds they, with beaks that were half snout and full of teeth? Some of them were walking stooped like they started out being upright. They hopped like Dwins instead of walking or running like Benta. For the first time, Tan Tan noticed how packbird feet and Dwin feet looked almost the same. Chichibud hopped out of his saddle down to the tree branch, said to Tan Tan, "You and a Papa Bois, the daddy tree that does feed we and give we shelter. Every Dwin nation have its own daddy tree. Come in peace to my home, Tan Tan. And when you go, go in friendship." Friendship? The bad Tan Tan voice howled at her, louder in Dwin land. "You could be friend to anybody. You was friend to we daddy?" Chi Bud reached to help Tan Tan down. She flitched her nasty self away. "I go do it myself." She climbed off Benta's back. Two picnic landed right by her, a Dwin and a packbird. Benta chirped a welcome. "Zaki," said Chi Bud. "Beats it." Was the Dwin child his? It reminded her of old mosque back costumes, leathery and plain. Ugly lizard picnic. She took a step back. The picnic backed in the opposite direction. The packbird picnic too. They were surrounded by the inhabitants of the tree, Dwin men and picnic packbirds. Where were the mysterious Dwin women? The men were talking fast to Chichibud in their language. He screeched at them. Most of them fell silent. The picnic them squeezed to the front and stood staring at Tan Tan, making the nervous click with their tiny claws and pressing their little bodies against the adults as if for comfort. Chichibud called out to Zaki again. And finally, the picnic Zaki came shuffling out of the circle, watching Tan Tan the whole time from the corners of its eyes. Its young packbird pet followed it, walking awkwardly in its old people gait. Benta nuzzled picnic, bird and all. Chichibud uncinched Benta's saddle, slung it over his shoulder. One of the Dwin men stood in front of him, his throat frill bulging with angry air. He expelled the air with high whistle and began the argument again, jerking his muzzle over towards Tan Tan. Chichibud answered back softly. A few Dwins in the crowd said the same words, seemed to be agreeing. But the angry one looked Tan Tan straight in her eyes, reached inside his genital flap, and let go a hot green steam of piss right there on the branch in front of her feet. Tan Tan danced out of the way. A thin layer of the living wood curdled where the urine had hit. Chichibud hopped between her and the angry one, his throat frill blown up full. The two of them stomped from foot to foot and screeched at each other. The stranger reached for his knife belt, lunged at Tan Tan. Next thing, something knocked Tan Tan down. Something big and warm covered her gently. Benta had shoved Tan Tan down and was shielding her beneath her huge warm body. For all her massive size, Benta's body was light. Tan Tan could hear Benta's wings beating, the bird screaming. That last sound, it almost sounded like Chichibud's name. Tan Tan peeked out from underneath Benta's smooth breast feathers. The Dwin stranger had crouched low in front of Benta. His knife was back in its sheath. His hands were empty, held out in open view. His throat frill deflated. Chichibud approached Benta slowly, murmured at her softly in the Dwin tongue. The pack bird raised her body so that Tan Tan could get out, but it was safe right there so in the musty dark that Benta had made. Tan Tan didn't move. Come on now, Chi Chi Bud coaxed her. You sure? I'm afraid that man killed me dead. Crack, nah, man. Benta go do for he if he try. Why he want to hurt me? He thinks that me should have left you in Junja and leave tall people to deal with their own. But trust Benta to keep you safe, Tan Tan. Woman is something else to deal with, we? Woman, more doing business for you to learn. Benta is my wife. Benta chortled. She stood right up and shoved her head under her own body to stare at Tan Tan with one purple eye. The sound she was making could be welcome. If it was talk, she was talking in truth. Tan Tan scooted out from under her and glowered at Chi Chi Bud. You make it Mako Pongi? Benta warbled in Chi Chi Bud's direction. Yes, I did say she wouldn't believe. The Dwyn that had attacked Tan Tan made a noise like a rusty hinge, stood and rejoined the crowd. Benta sidled over, squeaked, Tan Tan! She rattled her beak through Tan Tan's wiry hair, still trying to groom it. No, wait, back off. She was talking to a bird as though it could understand. Benta moved back. Chichi, but I don't understand. All you is two different species. The pack birds around them ruffled their feathers. Them find what you say jokey, Chichi Bud told her. We and them is same one. Only tall people does come in like the other beast in them. All you woman does look like man or picnic. Tan Tan laughed, swallowed her laughter, looked at Benta good, at the bird feet, so like Dwyn feet, and how the fronds of her feathers resemble the long hair on the Dwyn picnic them. The bird, Dwyn woman, regarded her calmly. All this time she could talk, Tan Tan asked Chi Chi Bud. Talk to me, Benta warbled. This time the Dwyn males added their shoo-shoo laughter to the pack bird's rufflings. I sorry, Benta. Good. Now that Tan Tan knew that Benta was sentient and capable of speaking human language, she could understand the pack bird a little more clearly. Chi Chi Bud said, Benta could always talk. All the Hinty, the Dwyn women speak, not just among tall people is all. Them want to keep them secrets. What a thing, Tan Tan murmured. And we have been reading today for science fiction from Nalo Hopkinson's Midnight Robber. We read a selection from her book, one of her earlier works, Midnight Robber, and it's a great, fantastical science fiction story, and encourage you to read it. She is Jamaican born, living in Canada. And we want to remind you of everything that is going on this week. And you'll have to forgive my pronunciation for all the words in Midnight Robber, because it is fantasy. And so it is science fiction. And sometimes words are made up. And so how they get pronounced, if I don't hear them, is something different. So we do want to remind you of everything that is going on this month. And we want to encourage you to participate. Tomorrow is Poetry Day. Tomorrow is the 18th, day 18 of the International Great Black Read Aloud Day, and tomorrow is Poetry Day. So we want to invite you to go live with your own poetry. We invite you to read someone else's poetry written by someone who's Black, from anywhere in the world. We would like you to not just listen, we want you to join us and read aloud. It is a wonderful thing to read aloud. When you read aloud, you get a better sense of the story. It's like love is not silent, right? There's action with love. And so here is our schedule, just in case you want to participate another day. Tomorrow is the 18th, poetry. And then the 19th, we have forgiveness. And the 20th, we have raising children. And then we just have a few more days and we'll be wrapping up this month. It has been so very fun reading so many different things this month. All these days, just reading different topics and different genres and learning different things, and even familiarizing myself with genres that I don't typically gravitate to. And so while I am blessed to have plenty of literature across many different genres, there are some that I don't. And so I'm excited. I have been enjoying myself. I hope you have been enjoying listening to all the different readings. And if you go to our YouTube page, you'll find where different people have read, you'll find their read alouds there as well. We want to invite you to subscribe to our newsletter so you'll know what we're doing beyond this month, because we'll have other read aloud days throughout the year. And we want you to join the fun. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow at the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. Tomorrow is Poetry Day. See you tomorrow.